to middle management if we're not focused on collegiates and those who are just entering their careers and professions. So that 1 to 8 year time frame, because that's when people tend to fall out of the pipeline.
That's critical.
So we're it's for our purposes, it benefits 20 years from now, but 20 years from now has to start now. So thus we started developing relationships with organizations like NSBE rather than reinventing the wheel. We don't have enough time, resources to do that. So
Absolutely. And that's exactly my thoughts for BWISE. Someone had asked if I was going to include, but meaning go after the tech, because STEM really is science, technology, engineering, and math. And I said, everyone is welcome, and certainly computer science is a science. But I felt like there were already so many wonderful organizations. I didn't want to reinvent the wheel or try to compete with organizations that were certainly larger, more established than I was. So that's why Black Women in Computing was perfect, right? So we can partner together, leverage our numbers. Black women in science, they're more science and engineers than technologists, right? So why wouldn't we work together? Because technology has a hot hand now. When people are talking about STEM, you never see them trot out, a civil engineer to talk about bridges. It's always, somebody in tech talking about coding or making robots. And I laughed because I was like, in 20 years, we're going to have a lot of people making robots and no civil engineers and no
city planning going down the drain.
That's right. They went all into tech. They didn't go anyplace else. So, okay. With that, I see it's 7:02. So we'll go ahead and get started. Hala should be joining us shortly. So we'll go ahead and introduce you, Erika, since I see we've got 15 people.
Wow.
So welcome, everybody. So for those of you who've been on a Blab before, you kind of understand how this goes. We do this once a week, mostly. Most weeks I am able to do it. And it's really just a fun hour, not television, of course, but, sharing information for your career, probably bleeds over a little bit to your life too, because the one thing I've learned in creating this group is the support network is so important to us. We don't have it. So many of us are in isolated companies or fields where you're the only. And what are you supposed to do when you have some challenges, with a manager at work? So, this started off as, some girls getting together, talking, sharing experiences, encouraging and empowering. And it's really gone, way beyond my wildest dreams. I think we're coming right up on 500 members, which is crazy. I don't think I could have planned it to happen that way. So thank you for all you supporters, those who've been on many Blabs. And so what we do, we'll go ahead and kick it off with Erika. And those of you who've been on before know we thrive on encouragement. So those little hands at the bottom of your right-hand corner, if you click on that, that tells Erika and I and Hala when she joins that we're really saying something. Thank you very much. Oh, thank you, Tam. That we're saying something, we need to keep going. That's right on topic. So if you'll let us know that, we'll keep going. And then certainly if you guys have questions, for those of you who've been on before, you can type your questions where it says send a message. You can make a comment, or if you type Q, then / that lets us know it's a question. We can make sure that we get those questions answered for you guys. So welcome again, everyone. I'm Erika, founder of Black Women in Science and Engineering. And this evening, we're going to be shifting gears a little bit and welcoming our tech sisters. A lot of our focus has been in science and engineering, but tech counts too, right? So we don't want to exclude them because I'm sure some of their challenges are very similar to ours. So our first guest is a young lady with a lovely name. Her name is Erika. Is it Mallett or Mallett?
It's Mallett. It's Mallett.
We're in Texas, so we try to make things French around here. So I had to make sure.
Well, no, because technically the person that I married that I got the name from was from Texas, so I can understand that need to specify completely.
Okay, because we'll French it up around here. I'm going to just read your bio, Erika, so people kind of know, your background and something about what you do. So Erika is an executive sales and marketing with management experience in the IT and manufacturing industries. She is currently the director of membership for the IT Senior Management Forum, which is ITSMF, the only national organization dedicated exclusively to cultivating executive talent among African American IT professionals. Erika is an effective communicator who has served as an executive briefing consultant, a career development presenter, a motivator for community engagement and volunteerism, and a facilitator for youth leadership development. She serves her community in several capacities, such as a trustee for Georgia Tech's Alumni Association, board of trustees, board member of Georgia Tech's Industrial Engineering Advisory Board, and the regional board of the American Diabetes Association, and lots of other stuff. I'm going to just skip to the bottom. She's a Delta. So for those of you who are Deltas, we get a lot of Deltas on here. Deltas got a lot of stuff going on. And a mentor and a track coach for middle school students. So without further delay, Erika Mallett. And Erika, if you'll tell us, a little bit about the history of ITSMF, kind of what your charter is. Do you have any famous members that we may know?
We definitely have members you should know. I don't know if you do, but we definitely think you should know them for sure. Okay. So thank you very much, Erika, number one, for allowing me and our organization to be represented on this evening's Blab. Definitely appreciate that. I appreciate the shout out and the opportunity just to share who we are and what we represent. We are actually celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. We were created and founded in 1996 by African-American technology executives, some of whom were actually already CIOs, had reached the band of CIO in their respective organizations. And with the goal and premise of one, because at the time, technology executives, Black technology executives represented barely 3% of the technology executive population. They wanted to create an environment, a safe, penalty-free environment where they could come together, number one, and just network, because essentially they represented a niche within a niche, right? And in some cases, they felt like they were on an island, right, in the environments that they worked in, or they would go to an industry conference and could count on one hand the number of other, Black technology executives that they would see in the same place. So again, networking, quite honestly, being one aspect of just supporting each other, uplifting each other, encouraging each other. The other was from the standpoint of professional development, because most corporations, even today, didn't have, like a six-figure HR resource that would still be providing professional development and content for those at that executive level. So they wanted to have a forum where they could bring in subject matter experts who could provide that, so they could continue to be transformational leaders in their respective organizations. And then the third thing that they wanted to focus on was paying it forward. Mm-hmm. Essentially, they didn't want to become extinct. They didn't want to become dinosaurs. They wanted to create pathways for those that were coming behind them. So through mentorship, through professional development for those who were yet at the executive band, providing those types of opportunities to help them navigate pitfalls and know how to explore opportunities and in many ways, kind of catapult their careers. So for 20 years, that's what we've continued to focus on, because that needle honestly hasn't moved much in the 20-year period. Black technology executives only represent 6%, barely at this point in 2016. And for women, it's barely 2% for Black female technology executives, barely 2%. Or you can even look at other statistics, right? When you look at the number of female CIOs in Fortune 500 organizations, that's only a 24% statistic for that number, more generally and broadly based. So still a lot to do. And that's kind of the essence of who we are and what we do. So right. I'll stop there.
No, that's great. That's, kind of, the vision of BWISE is making sure you have that support. And our focus is on mid to senior level women, because it gets very scarce when you start moving up the corporate ladder in the STEM fields for sure. Now, accounting and finance, I think probably have, a bit more people. So you can see another woman at, another accounting firm or, there's some industries that we seem to, I won't say dominate because I don't think we dominate any industry in particular, but, there's, other women that you can model your career after, or you can share experiences. But you're absolutely right. And tech has been, if not more so exclusionary than a lot of the STEM fields, because, probably since the 70s or 80s, people have been trying to bring diversity in some form or fashion in some of these industries. So you have probably 30 years, some of us in this field, but still not certainly any great numbers considering how long people have been in the workforce. And, I talked to people who, graduated in 1984, and you're still a director. I mean, how does
Right. How does that work?
You're a director, you've been working. I mean, so that's it, really. You're not going to be able to make the leap to vice president in the remaining time in your career. So pretty much that's where you're going to go out at that level. And there's nothing, everybody doesn't have desires to, ascend up the corporate ladder and get to the C-suite. But the opportunity should be there for those people who are talented and work hard and want to do that. And so, that's kind of where I think, the two of our groups come in. Talk to Dr. Reed at NSBE, and, I think he kind of understands that NSBE's brand is early career. And I know they try to do things, professional development, but they're not the only ones that have that steep drop off at about certainly 32 to 35 when people start getting married and having kids. Right. And NSBE is kind of pushed to the side. A lot of people are very active in their 20s, right. But come 30s, NSBE just, unless your company is involved. So if you're, sponsoring organization, or you just have a burning passion for NSBE, the numbers just aren't there for us in leadership or people who are really trying, like you said, to move the needle. So,
right. And to your point, that's exactly why we decided to reach out and to engage with organizations like NSBE, organizations like Inroads, because demographically, we understood that demographic profile, right? Exactly like you said, folks who are pretty early into their careers are the ones who are actively engaged in NSBE. And I'm guilty of the same thing, right? I'm someone who came up through NSBE because I actually have an engineering background, industrial engineering from Georgia Tech, and active as a student and active as a young alum, and to the point of being on the national board, both as a student, both as an alum, right? But once I hit that point of getting married, made a pivot, right? And the reality is that's a crucial time, because that's a time frame, quite honestly, where there's a lot of vulnerability that starts to develop in terms of people not seeing someone that looks like them,
right?
And that light of the end of the tunnel starts to get very dim. Right. And so from the perspective of, we focus on middle management to executive leadership primarily. We used to. And that will always continue to be a focus for us because that's what we were founded upon. But in terms of helping to guide, encourage, and ensure that those who are early in their careers can stay committed to those careers so they can get to middle management, so that they can then get to executive leadership, we have a social responsibility. We, being ITSMF, have a social responsibility to ensure that that happens.
Right.
Or even from the standpoint of NSBE now has their current goal, right, of graduating 10,000 engineers annually, right? That's their 2025 goal. And if you statistically look at where we sit, so that only represents 3,500 students to date. And so there's a huge growth that has to occur from 3,500 to 10,000. Right. Well, why would we support that? Because when you look at the background of our members, they have electrical engineering degrees, industrial engineering degrees, computer engineering. So they don't just have the assumed backgrounds of computer science and computer engineering. They have very varied backgrounds, right? And so if we help NSBE achieve their goal, then ultimately we're feeding into the pipeline of our goal as an organization. So
Absolutely.
you asked the question of famous members, right? Again, don't know if they're famous, but they should be because they've achieved much. So I'll start with somebody who is a fellow alum, Georgia Tech, Ted Colbert. There you go. He is the senior vice president and CIO of Boeing.
Oh,
He's
wow.
barely 40. So that's the other achievement, is that he's achieved that level at a very young age.
Wow.
He reports directly into the CEO of Boeing. Right. And he just actually received the Legacy Award from NSBE this past year at the Golden Torch Awards. Or people like Linda Clement Holmes, who is the global CIO for Procter and Gamble. She's actually been a former chief diversity officer for P&G, has came up through the ranks of the IT organization at P&G, but she now serves as the CIO for global services within the Procter and Gamble organization, right? That's huge. These are huge Fortune 100 organizations, that are just obviously dominant in their particular vertical, and they are being run by Black technology executives. The fact that, unfortunately, more people don't know that,
Right.
and they don't have a greater level of notoriety around that, and in terms of that level of success, that's what we're trying to promote, and again, to help serve as a form of encouragement.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm always looking for people to post on the BWISE, www.bwiseusa.org website, and also in the LinkedIn group. I try to focus on folks that you may not have heard of. And one of the things Dr. Reed mentioned when he was in Houston was there are some companies that embrace you, not just tolerate you. And Boeing was one of those. I think I just focused on two young ladies that are defense contractors or in the aerospace area. Stephanie C. Hill, can't remember that Boeing or not. She's at one of those, Boeing. And then another young lady, Joan Berry Hudson or something like that.
Okay.
So I'm seeing, which is so interesting, historically, you wouldn't have thought that, we would have gone into those, defense type industries that, hire mass quantities of engineers and then lay them off. So, I didn't know that was, a path for maybe greater career success than, working for the oil and gas companies, here in Houston. For those of you who are on in Houston, you already kind of know the situation. Houston or Texas, I'll say, has kind of, trying to say politically correct since I'm recording. Texas is different. It's very different here. And a lot of things that, come very naturally or, make perfect sense in other areas don't work here. And I tell people, having lived in Atlanta for 13 years, I knew who the highest ranking Black at Coca-Cola and UPS and what else is Home Depot, because they were in the community. They were on the news. They were in the newspaper. You saw them at events. That's not the case here in Houston. When I first moved here, I made a conscious decision to try to reach out, even before I had the idea for BWISE, because I thought, I just want to know who they are. And I had someone who you would have, thought would have been very plugged in. He said, I don't know who they are. And that shocked me. I could not believe that. I didn't, I'm not asking for donations, or for them to necessarily speak at an event, but just to know who they are so I can kind of look at their career path and say, oh my gosh, they're a Kimmy. Oh, okay, I'm a Kimmy. I can do that too. And I just had a conversation with Hala today. I'm not sure where Hala is, but we got Errika. So if she joins in, great. If not, we'll just keep going talking about ITSMF. But we were talking about that, there's kind of a hidden group of Black executives here in Houston that don't make themselves known for whatever reason. So how are the next generation of young girls, specifically, since, my group is for Black women, supposed to be encouraged that they can actually achieve success if they don't see them? Right. So, Houston in itself has, some challenges, which is, so crazy to me, because you've got probably the greatest concentration of technical graduates and engineering and technical opportunities in the entire country. You know, there's probably no place else where you've got this many Black graduates coming out with, you know, science, engineering, and technology degrees. And all the major oil companies are headquartered. This is the oil and gas capital of the world.
Right.
And I can't find anybody above, well, I take that back. I have one gentleman who I think may be a great supporter, but that's the only one I know of that's, you know, a senior leader at an oil and gas company. And I even asked him, I said, well, who's your contemporary? Who's your counterpart at some of the other oil companies? He was like, you know what? You know, I spent a lot of my time overseas. So, you know, I haven't spent a lot of time in Houston. So I really don't know. And I was like, that is incredible, because I can guarantee you the vice president of strategy at Shell knows who the vice president of strategy of Chevron is. I can guarantee you that they know. They may not be friends. They may not belong to the same country club, but they know who each other are. So it's just amazing that, you know, that's not the case. And I always say, man, if only Atlanta had Houston's resources. Oh my gosh. You know, I just miss the progressiveness of Atlanta. And it's so encouraging to see so many wonderful things that you all have going on. As far as technology in Atlanta, I think MailChimp is out of Atlanta. I was like, oh, go ahead, Atlanta.
Atlanta's holding it down pretty well.
Atlanta is holding it down thanks to that little North Avenue Trade School pumping out some good talent.
They do a lot. They do a lot to contribute to the environment. And in all honesty, I mean, not just because of, you know, graduates like ourselves, but just their support of ecosystems like the incubators that are here, like ATDC and Atlanta Tech Village. And so they are a very critical part of making sure that they're not only producing students and contributors to those environments and to that ecosystem, but providing funding, pouring funding into that, supporting programs like the Inventure Prize. And so speaking, you know, in terms of using that as a model, right? One of the things that we're focused on doing as an organization is literally we're focused now on supporting our entrepreneurs that are in ITSMF, because about 13% of our membership base have their own businesses. Again, not a well-known fact in terms of the number of very prominent, successful Black technology business owners that exist, right? But you have to your point, Erika, right? There has to be an identification of who they are there, and then there has to be a promotion. You know, you don't just establish a list, right? People are great at producing lists, but then you promote. And then you allow others to know, and then you share those stories. And because when you look at, you know, tragic perspectives like the one that has come out recently from Facebook, right? That represents a lack of knowledge. That represents a lack of understanding. That represents a lack of just taking the time, right, to do the research. And I'm not going to put it all on them, because I recognize that as an organization, we can and should do much better at promoting. And so that's why opportunities like this are so phenomenal, because we want people to know that we're here as a support mechanism, not just, again, for executive leaders, but we're now looking at the entire pipeline. We're now establishing that people fall and come into that pipeline from different areas, different perspectives, different points on the timeline, right? And we have to be more intentional about allowing people to know that we're here to support and to uplift and to mitigate those types of perspectives that exist out there. We're so committed to it that a little over a year ago, we were tapped by the Congressional Black Caucus to be one of 7 organizations to be a part of this collaborative group and this initiative called CBC Tech 2020. The whole focus of this very specific initiative is to, from a workforce development perspective, mitigate those types of misnomers that exist in the technology landscape. Everything from minorities or underrepresented individuals in technology to specifically women or minority women in technology to say, no, they're here. Here's where you can find them,
Right.
particularly if somebody wants to try and place the argument of they don't exist, they don't have the skill sets. We have a full roster, right, of nothing but middle management to executive leaders who are Black technology executives. So the minute someone wants to shout, I don't know where to find them, we're trying to help say, no, we're right here. This is where you can find them. This is an organization. If you are sincerely looking for that type of talent, we want you to know definitively that this is an organization that's here. But again, it starts with an identification. The next phase is definitely a promotion and an acknowledgement of who those individuals are. And it's only through collective voices like BWISE and ITSMF, BDPA, NESB, and a list of other organizations who have to just continually put that mantra out there and make that information accessible and available so that it no longer becomes this mystery and we can really demystify a lot, again, of those misnomers that are out there.
That in 2016, I think I posted just about every article that I saw yesterday. It still amazes me. I shared that Kimberly Bryant with Black Girls Code, Google has, given them space in their headquarters. And, Black BDPA has been around, years.
Right.
And I guess for me, I understand if it was Mark Zuckerberg who said, I don't know where to go. But Maxine Williams, who is the diversity, I guess, chief, don't get how she doesn't know that. But I know, when you work for a corporation, you say what the corporation tells you to say. So I understand what she said as a representative of the company, but in my heart, I don't understand that. And that's what she's paid to do, right? Is to build relationships with organizations, or help fund people who are seriously, engaged in doing that for you. It can only benefit you. So, that, they rightfully got trashed yesterday for putting that out. And maybe if they had just said, our numbers are not growing, but, we're confident that some of the work that we're doing is going to, result in that. But to say that it's our fault, meaning, there are not as many of us as necessary in this pipeline is ridiculous. And it really, I know I know you know this because you're certainly closer to the industry than I am, but it's just amazing that you're still hearing comments that we're not here in numbers 20 years later after we've gone on. So that's a whole nother conversation. We'll be here on all night, but I'm confident that the public thrashing that they have received probably will open up some greater dialogue over there, and hopefully this will be an opportunity for people like your organization and Black Women in Computing to get in front of them and say, hey, no, where are you getting your data from? There's plenty of it. And someone in one of the articles stated that it's very easy for them to give Kimberly Bryant $2.5 million, right? They can give her that because I believe her group is focused on girls. Now, it's called Black Girls Code, but I believe she has adults in there. That's just kind of a clever name. But, it's easy to make an investment that you are not even sure 20 years down the road is even going to pay off, right? So I'd give somebody a couple $1 million because I don't want them in here right now. So, I'm hoping, that some of you all who have been in the struggle far longer can, make some inroads with not just, Facebook. Google's just as guilty. There's probably not one company that's, got numbers representative of, the community. So Facebook just caught it. And rightfully so. You got to have your facts right. If you're going to come out and make a statement, you better have some information to stand behind it. So we'll see how that goes. I think I tweeted, let's you, me, and Black Women in Computing. And I don't know if you know Carlotta Carter out in California. We can make a phone call. I could pack my bags. We could fly out to Mountain View.
Right. I mean, to your point, it's take the time to look under the covers. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? To use Google as an example, I mean, if you just Google, you know, you'll find us. You'll find BDPA. You'll find these organizations, like you said, that have been around. We've been around 20 years. BDPA has been around longer than we have. As a matter of fact, when our founders decided to create ITSMF, they were all, and most of them still are, very active members of BDPA. The reason that they decided to create ITSMF was because they were trying to now cater to a more executive audience and recognize that there might be some value and benefit in creating a separate organization. But even with that, today, 20 years later, BDPA is still our longest withstanding alliance partner. We still ensure that, just as a matter of fact, we have our symposium coming up next month, August 11th through the 13th in Atlanta. And we always ensure, of the 4 symposiums that we host, that our third quarter symposium always takes place wherever they are hosting their national conference. So the unity exists, the synergy exists, and that's why it becomes really challenging for it to play into the, oh, we didn't know factor. Sometimes people enjoy the opportunity for trying to present something of, ignorance is king, right? But the reality is we have to do, and that's why I say we take ownership.
Right.
We have to do whatever we can to help mitigate that. Like, no, we're really not going to allow you to have that as an excuse. We're really not going to allow you to have that as a valid reason, because it's not. And so everything from the standpoint of not only who we represent, but the professional development that we provide professional development from every entity, from our CXO leaders that are a part of the organization, to we have a very specific track for women that we call Emerge. We have a very specific 12-month professional development program, again, for those who are not yet actually eligible for membership in ITSMF, who are more at the senior manager or newly seated director level. We have a 9-month program that we call the Executive Academy for those who've been in industry, 15 years, 12 years, 15 years, 25 years, who are looking for a game changer. And both of these 2 programs, our Management Academy and our Executive Academy, are directed and led by 2 PhD, certified professors, and directors of our program, right? So these are the folks who've been in industry, who have PhDs, who are now out here servicing and developing talent. We offer, basically what I'm trying to say is, a portfolio of services. So here again, our goal is to help an organization like a Facebook or a Google or an Intel or anybody who's truly struggling with their, statistical platform of where they sit in terms of diversity, to know you do have organizations like ITSMF, like BDPA, who can walk with you, can partner with you. And in fact, that's literally what some of our corporate partners have done. I mentioned Linda Clement Holmes with P&G. Well, before she became the CIO, and when she was still serving in as a technology leader, and then as the chief diversity officer, she decided that I'm going to make sure that for all of our Black technology professionals that are coming up into the ranks of P&G, that they take advantage of and are positioned and are actually a part of their professional development plan to come through our Management Academy. So for as long as we've had that academy in place, they've made sure that every year, annually, they have anywhere from 3 to maybe 5 or 6 P&G employees that are coming through this program. It is a formal part now of their whole career development pathway within P&G. Other great corporate partners who now leverage our program: Deloitte is another organization, Bank of America, BD. I mean, there are numerous major companies who have established, okay, this is an organization, one that is doing it well and has done it historically well for several years now. Programs that are on par with a Harvard, executive leadership program, right?
Right.
So again, to your point, if you do your research and find out the facts, you'll know that programs like this exist, and they're here to create a betterment in terms of talent, available talent, executive talent. And it's just unfortunate when like you said, any bashing that they receive, you receive it because you brought it upon yourself if you just didn't do the time to do the due diligence. But if they're listening, or anybody associated with them are listening, please know we're here.
We're here. Not only we're here, we'll be calling you.
Right. Or have been trying to, right? And maybe now you'll pick up the phone.
That's right. And if you don't, we're going to post it.
It's to your dismay. It really is to your dismay, because the conversely, other organizations are using it to their benefit. In that vein, at the NSBE National Convention, right? You had Twitter, as we're sitting here and having this session, so you've got the founder of Twitter doing this executive roundtable. He had this closed door session as well, where our president had the opportunity to sit down with both he and his chief diversity officer. Most recently, they brought somebody onto their board, so they're listening, they're paying attention. They're taking the time to be intentional and to be engaged. And not only was he at the NSBE convention, but just a few months prior to that, he was at the Platform Summit, which is hosted down at Morehouse, right? Or virtually, but he spent over an hour in conversation with the audience, right? Via satellite, and taking some very hard questions, because at the time there was a lot of new content and numbers that had just come out about, out in Silicon Valley, right? So it's those opportunities where you see the difference, right? You see people who are willing to be intentional, and from the very top leadership down, and companies who may not be, and you just see the difference in the results, right? You see the difference in the results.
Right. Well, that's great. I think that is so necessary. And, you guys have been around a long time. So anybody who is worth their salt, is fortunate to partner with you. And that's where BWISE is headed. We're just getting started. So we're probably going to copy your playbook and see what we need to do in terms of science and engineering, which kind of leads me to my next question. So I was looking in the backgrounds of some of the, because I wanted to reach out to some Microsoft folks for a potential project. And I was kind of looking at the backgrounds, and I said, well, shoot, some of these people who have senior positions here in Houston anyway, have business management degrees. Yeah. I know some of us with engineering degrees ought to be able to make a transition over to tech with the right training and background. I know years ago, if you wanted to switch over to, was it called tech then? I guess it was called IT, right? You go and you take some programming languages, you get certified in some applications, and then boom, bam, bam, you're in tech. What about some of the ladies who, may want to make a transition, that maybe they're middle level? When I was with my last company, I actually had IT department report into me, which is interesting, because I'm like, most times how to do the work of your subordinates, and I didn't. I was like, okay, I know what big data is, and I know what a server is, and some of it is more administrative than it is actually, understanding technology, because if you don't do it every day, you don't know it as well as the people who do anyway. But that did make me think, I set my ship with chemical engineering, and maybe I need to learn some robotics or learn how to code or move over there. So what would you say about the opportunities for those of us who are maybe in traditional disciplines, and, maybe it seems like the path, certainly compared to Houston, seems like the path upward with the tension on lack of diversity may be better. It's certainly, being a part of your organization, what would you say to some of my members who maybe would like to make a shift over to tech, how would you recommend that? Or do you have to be an electrical engineer or computer science or IE to make that shift? What would you say for someone who's a mechanical, speaking to TAM, who wants to make a shift?
So I would say it's much easier than most people realize. And that's because the traditional, to your point, right, Erika, the traditional backgrounds or the presumed backgrounds that people have always, yes, presumed to that, you know, that technology leaders have, it would probably actually surprise some folks. Like most CIOs, particularly most CIOs currently, either have supplemented their technology backgrounds, be it engineering or computer science, with a management degree. So either an MBA or, you know, or some people have done the reverse. They came out, you know, in business or some other discipline and then got an MIS, so a master's in information science. You know, so I mean, there's such a crossover that exists. And again, if you look at the profile of a lot of executive technology leaders, many of them may not actually even have a technology background, or many CIOs may not even have a technology background. What they may have is an MBA.
Right.
Because here's the reality of it, right? The decisions that are being made are not just hardware, software decisions. They are decisions about impacting business,
right,
impacting the bottom line. Understanding, they look at divisions within an organization as client sets, right? So they are identifying solutions to solve their clients' problems. They are identifying solutions that enable their clients to sleep at night. You know, what are their pains? What keeps them up at night? And so when you look at it, when it's and have an understanding that the decisions they are making are more from an analysis basis, they're from a a data manipulation basis. It's really not from a technology standpoint all the time. That may be a part of the conversation and a part of the solution, but it's not as basic or it's not as bottom line as that. So for anybody who has an interest, I would say, in being introduced to that space, this is something that I recommend to anybody, particularly like students before they graduate, is to look at opportunities for serving on cross-functional teams. Or if someone from your IT organization, you know, they approach your management team and they're coming to your organization because you're a client, and they're saying, we need a liaison within your organization to work with our IT team, right? Be that liaison, because now you're going to get a firsthand, intimate knowledge and be in a direct conversation with someone within that team. But everything from functionally doing that within your corporate environment to taking advantage of educational experiences that exist, again, through places like our alma mater, where you can go the traditional MBA route, or specifically for the executive MBA program, they have a subset that focuses specifically on global technology. And again, that's for anybody. It's not for somebody who just has a technology background. It's for somebody who wants to increase their technology prowess, right? So there are so many opportunities. And in fact, one of the things that we're having to become more cognizant of as an organization is, as we encourage and invite people to come into ITSMF, to attend our symposiums, we are truly broadening and expanding who that is and what that looks like. Because the other reality is technology, the technology industry as a whole it's expanded, right? That's why you have positions now like a chief digital officer. This role has been around barely 5 years, but what it is a cross-functional role between the CIO and the chief marketing officer. The premise being data analytics, right? Taking all of that data, analyzing it, and data that's coming in through various mediums, right, and various tactical elements that are used to engage with their customers, understand the profiles of their customers, understand the habits and behaviors of their customers, understand the trends of their customers, taking that data, taking that marketing content, that marketing intel, analyzing it, and identifying how do we create net new business value for our companies, thus chief digital officers, thus organizations like, I know people are going to get tired of us saying it, like Georgia Tech, that now have a whole master's program dedicated to understanding data analytics, because it is a very specialized area that has straight just evolved. As a matter of fact, data scientists, which again are not people who have to have a technology background, they're people who have to know how to analyze, right? How to think. Statistics is one of the biggest platforms for that particular discipline. Data scientists are some of the highest paid undergraduate degrees coming out of the college environment. Their salaries are basically north of like $200,000 as a
out of school
starting salary. Because it's someone who has taken the time to understand how to understand data, how to break it down into its molecular parts, right? And
I'm going back to school right now.
Girl, please, everybody and their grandmama needs to go back and get, but point being, I mean, you have everything from insurance companies to health informatics. I mean, just there's no vertical that doesn't need and want somebody who has a data scientist profile, right? So they can demand that. But there's, go ahead.
I think, for as many shortcomings that tech has, that just means there are that many opportunities. And so whenever we're talking about, case in point, right, we're talking about diversifying. Well, even if you start with these little girls today, that's 20 years before they're going to be contributing members in society. And last time I checked, you just can't wait. Business does not stand still waiting for a workforce to come in. So for those of us who have the analytics, because Lord knows if you have an engineering or a science degree, you have had statistics and all of that. Right. Maybe it may have been 25 years ago, but right. You
have to refresh a little bit, but you can do it.
Right. You have to refresh, but you don't have to do that if you go back and get your MBA anyway.
Exactly. So you're gonna anything. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
You're gonna have to refresh. But, I think some of the challenges for those of us who may be tired of, especially, and I think that's the division between tech and science and engineering, right? A tech person could sit in a desk in a, fancy high-rise office. But if you're a operations engineer or process engineer, you're on the plant floor with a hard hat and steel-toe boots and fire retardant uniform. So for those of us who have served our time in that army and we don't want to do it anymore, it's sometimes challenging being able to go to another field that, number one, respects your degree and the time you put into it, and also the salary. Mm-hmm. Here in Texas, you've got a lot of people who are laid off. And the issue here is the salaries are so high compared to the rest of the nation. So you've got, everybody and their grandmama makes 150. That ain't nothing. And so, how is that person going to transfer? They're not going to go in education and make half of that. So what industry can they transition into and be able to, still maintain the same quality of life, same level of, technical ability? And I have a member who's looking at data science. So maybe I need to have a program talking about, maybe transitioning into that. And we would love to have you back if you have, some ideas, or maybe there can be something put together, right? So we keep talking about the lack of diversity here. And here's my greatest, thing, especially as an engineer. We keep talking about the lack of diversity. Oh, it's a lack of diversity, lack of diversity, lack of diversity. Well, talking about it is not going to make a change, right? So you have to actually put some boots on the ground and you have to invest some money to make a change. So why can't we, through your organization, I'm going to mess it up.
Twister. You know what? Say it's my family. I forgot to say that in the beginning. That's what we also call ITSMF. It's my family, because that's a tongue twister, particularly when you say 10 times fast. Yes.
It's my family.
There you go.
So why can't, states or corporations put together some programs to transition, folks into other areas? These are people right now, who you're not taking somebody who has no, technical or analytical, background and having to teach them, statistics. They're already at a point where you're probably analyzing data on a regular basis anyway. So why can't we transition those folks? To me, that's a much easier, if you're trying to increase your diversity numbers, that's a much easier way to do it than investing these, millions of dollars for 20 years. And I always say, I can guarantee you, if you go to Jeffrey Immelt, who's the CEO of GE, and you say, hey, Jeffrey, if you give me $50 million, and what I'm going to use it to do is, teach these girls, technology. In probably about 20 years, I'll be able to pay it back. Maybe. I may not be able to, because some of them going to drop out. That he'll be like, security, can you come and get these people right now? There's no company in the world that would, buy that concept as a financial investment. So I don't know why we're putting, other than it looks good and it's easy and it's, it pacifies, some people to say, look, that, they've got all these, programs for elementary school kids. That's wonderful. But, if you're not going to fix the leaky pipeline, it really doesn't matter. Dr. Ford is on and he knows how I feel about, the lack of money towards people established in their careers and trying to help them stay in STEM versus trying to get, people who will never work in STEM. I mean, I'm not saying that you shouldn't, because if you certainly don't put the effort into the schools and get more people to consider it, you certainly aren't going to increase your numbers. But, to see 80-90% of the focus, the money go there is just disheartening. And so I'm very passionate about that, about shining the light. Like, hey, you have some people right here who would be willing to, make a career switch. And we've already got a lot of, the foundational talent or expertise to make this switch. So I would love you and I need to sit down and see what can we do together. Because like I said, the electricals I'm not worried about. Some of them might make an easy transition, especially if they're working in automation. That's an easy switch. But for me, it would be more of a challenge as a chemical engineer, even though I did have desires to work in automation. So probably know a little bit more about tech than the typical chemical engineer. But even for me, I'd have to take another class to get up to speed on that. But it wouldn't be impossible, right?
Well,
I mean,
and particularly, Erika, I mean, a lot of institutions now, because the curriculum has evolved since we were in school, right? And so for a lot of institutions now, because there's so much modeling that goes on, and so a lot of the technology is actually introduced across all platforms, across all engineering disciplines, be it chemie, EE, even obviously biomed. I mean, just practically every engineering discipline has some level of programming. And in fact, for a lot of institutions, as a freshman, a part of your core curriculum and classes that you have to take as freshmen is like a freshman-based programming class, because
I had programming.
Right. I mean, so it's just kind of evolved. But because even when I was studying IE at Tech, right, a lot of the analysis that we did was more, numbers and crunching numbers on paper versus going through any programming models. And so again, just the intensity of that, I guess that's what I'm saying. And to your point, so definitely for students that are coming out now, they're getting much more exposure across the board. And thus, again, it helps with the transition as someone wants to transition career paths. I think to your point, we have to identify programs that are more focused on sustainability, truly keeping that talent in the pipeline, right? Versus moving grossly away from STEM, right? It's an old statistic, but from 2009, some of the studies that came out then reflected that more than half of the students who came in and identified themselves to be STEM majors, over half of them before they graduated had changed their major to something non-STEM related, or again, take it forward for those who actually graduated, a whole nother 50% of that population, by the time they were 5 years into their career, again, did a pivot and were pivoting out of STEM careers, right? So that when you look at where the problem sits, and that's not just a minority problem, right? That's collectively a problem. It only becomes more challenging for us as minorities and specifically as women because we don't have the level of encouragement, engagement, the luminaries, to know who's, all of that, though, that those variables that feed into a sustainable pipeline, we're missing those extra elements, right? Or we don't have as many of those particular elements. And so that's here again, while we're trying to promote and identify, here they are, this is what they do. Here's the career literacy and lineage associated to your point so that people can understand, because almost all of our constituents have made that type of pivot at some point in their life, not out of STEM, but a pivot period, right? In terms of if they came in the door one way, they're not currently sitting in that same position. Again, particularly because the technology industry has stretched so wide from where it began, 20 plus years ago, right? Or 20 plus years, and that's still more of a current state, because obviously the technology industry has been around much longer than that. But point being, the evolution of jobs, opportunities, disciplines, even within the technology industry, has become so broad that you really can almost have any type of background and place yourself into this environment. Or even more importantly, so many incubators, markets, cities, schools have invested in this entrepreneurial spirit, right? For students. It's more of just get a degree. We'll help you take it and put it somewhere. We'll help you take those ideas, that passion, and formulate it into something, right? So most definitely the commitment needs to be more about, let's not push people into a specific direction. Let's just encourage them to get the background, to get the discipline, and then figure out how to keep them sustained in this STEM pipeline. One of the ways that we're trying to do this, again, through these alliance partnerships that we have, is this whole concept around what we're right now kind of tagging as like a technology institute. What it is taking an organization like a NSBE, right, who starts at like the 3rd grade level with the SEEP program, right, and goes all the way through beginning of to middle management of professional careers. You overlap that with organizations like an Inroads, right, which comes in at the collegiate level and again kind of goes up through about a middle management level. You take an organization like an ITSMF, and now what do you have? You practically have a full pipeline of constituents, right? But what the difference is now these organizations would be talking, communicating, collaborating through this institute. I actually always use myself as an example, as someone who went through Inroads.
Oh, me too.
Okay. You see, so here again, NSBE, Inroads, and for me now working for ITSMF, it's like, but who tracked all that? Who kept up with all that? Who encouraged Erika or student X through all of that, right? Nobody, right? If it weren't for Erika deciding to stay in this space, you know what I'm saying? So point being, being more intentional about it, having a formalized program, to your point, getting funding that will really enable and empower that institute to really help guide, encourage, and sustain talent in that pipeline for the long haul. Not, to your point, for just the 3rd grade perspective, not just for one segment, but an actual formalized program that's looking at the pipeline and paying attention to the pipeline through its entirety, and even helping with the connection points and the synergies that exist between those different organizations, right? Because again, what we tell of Facebook is that it's not that these organizations don't exist. It's not that the talent doesn't exist. You just don't know where to find it. But if we have a whole institute that is representative of the full pipeline, I'm sorry, it's really hard for you to dispute that now. It's really hard for you to say, you know what I'm saying? So you're spot on when you talk about funding commitment and looking at it in holistically versus getting so caught up and segmented into particular areas that, particularly if you're not going to pay attention to it, right? You're going to pour all this money into elementary age students, and then you're not paying attention to what happens to them 20 years later, then you're really not trying to impact 20 years later.
Right. If your focus is only on the beginning of the pipeline and you've put all the responsibility on the parents, the teachers, and the children, and you have not worked on dismantling the systematic reasons why people leave this field, struggle in this field, don't matriculate in this field, I mean, you're sustaining the problem. And it doesn't matter if you have 3 million girls, come into this field, they're not going to stay. I mean, as an engineer, I know you probably get as frustrated as me to say you haven't fixed your problem.
Right.
You haven't fixed your problems. So you have a tub and that tub has a hole in it. It doesn't matter how much water you put in it, it's going to come back out. And so, to no end. And I just want to jump up and down when I hear, oh, we gave this school $1 million. Oh, we gave this, I haven't, doesn't mean there aren't any, but I haven't heard one organization stand up and say, we know our industry is challenging. And so we're looking, like you said, holistically, right? We're looking at from, elementary school throughout, the pipeline for us, for our individual organization, to have it continuously filled with qualified, talented, interested minority people, so that we don't have to go looking. It's not difficult. And studies have shown Black females are the most loyal and ambitious demographic of anyone, right? You give us, a little praise, a little money, a little exposure, we ain't never leaving. You got to take us out on a stretcher. We're not going to leave.
We'll stay engaged, most definitely. And Erika, one of the things we're excited to be venturing into is we in talking about alliance partners. So NCWIT, so the National Center for Women and Information Technology, they're funded by NSF, right? They've been around for quite a few years. They're funded by NSF, and they are bringing together a roundtable of organizations to have this very specific conversation of taking young Black girls and getting them engaged in technology, but more importantly, sustaining them, bringing them in, getting them encouraged to be there, and then how are we going to sustain them so that we're making a future impact, right? So we're excited that that conversation, that dialogue will begin next month out in California. One of the things that will be responsible for bringing to bear are organizations like yours, and others that exist, again, to mitigate, the perception that there aren't collaborative efforts, that there aren't, just a multitude of organizations that, if they know, the support, the sincere support and opportunity exists, they're ready to jump in. So we're excited to be a part of something like that, because this is highly important to us.
That's critical. You haven't mentioned Executive Leadership Council, so I'm not sure if you all do anything with them, but there's really too much work to be done for any of us to stand alone. I mean, there's all kind of, if you go on the web, you'll see women of color in technology and Black girl geeks. And, my thought, and I hope this is the case, I don't know, but I hope that anybody who reaches out, because we're not in competition, as your grandmother would say, what baby was for you is for you. What God has planned for you, can't nobody take it away. So, I'm hopeful. I don't know that this is the case, is that, there is a lot of collaboration within these organizations, because, we know that when people or corporations talk about diversity, they're talking about white women. And so, I mean, it's important for you to be engaged and knowledgeable, but we have to have organizations that promote our agenda and are supportive of, you know, collectively our struggles, because whatever benefits minorities is going to benefit white women. I don't think they quite understand that. They think, you know, we got it, so we're going to kick the ladder down. But if you have increased pay by minorities, white women by default will benefit as well. So, you know, although I think it's important to be members of SWE, or, you know, be active or knowledgeable about SWE and, you know, maybe your individual disciplines organization, I'm hopeful that all these variety of organizations around the country, women of color and STEM, I think, is another organization. So I'm hoping that, you know, everybody's working collaboratively. I think I'm probably one of very few people who do something on this frequency. I see a lot of people having monthly events, and that's, you know, that's important too. And logistically, I know people just can't get out and, you know, attend events every month. But if you have time for love and hip hop, you have time to get on a Blab and talk about important stuff like your career and your community and what you need to do. So, you know, I feel like, you know, not me, but the platform of sharing this information is critically needed for us. You know, we don't talk about, you know, I mean, it's all about careers, but, you know, it's never to a level where anybody should feel intimidated. Oh, I can't join, or I don't, you know, they're going to be talking about something that I'm not aware of yet. I think that's how you get aware. And, you know, as we continue to grow, you want to keep having, you know, wonderful, progressive organizations like yours on and getting the word out. And that's, you know, part of the focus I have with the website is there's so much, you know, that we don't know. I can't tell you how many people have come back to me. It's like, I didn't know that. I was on your website and I saw this person. I put you on there, Erika. I think it was 2 weeks ago. Because people need to know, you know, that's how you first of all, you know how competitive we are, right? Oh, she a vice president. I'm gonna be a vice president too, right? So we need to see each other achieving, so that will motivate us, encourage us, so we can reach out and work together. It's so discouraging to see, you know, factions separating. This person doesn't want to work. There really is enough for everybody. So I'm glad to hear of all your collaborations. I hope we can be a part of that. We're babies on the scheme of it, but I hope moving forward we can work and bridge that, because I feel like I said, there's a lot of focus on tech. But, you know, the poor mechanical engineer, can she get some love? You know, can the civil engineer get some love? That's right, Tam. Tam says that's right.
I see that.
That's right.
To overload on that.
Right. I mean, that's not sexy. Mechanical engineering is not sexy. So that's not, you know, they're bringing astronauts out to see these kids. Nobody is bringing a mechanical engineer who's actually, that's the work you're going to do.
Right.
NASA only takes 1% of all applicants. And I can't even imagine what the numbers are for Blacks. So, you know, if you're going to go into a STEM field, unless you have someone guiding your career, you're going to be working in a plant, baby. So, you know,
Most definitely. And most definitely, Tam, you can. Okay, you can definitely get some love. Absolutely.
See there, Tam?
One of my best friends, she is a mechanical engineer from Texas. She recently got her master's, her MIS, and she has been doing the work of, you know, computers as a computer scientist for almost the past 10 years now, right? So the transition is real. The overlap is real. The opportunities for, you know, cross-functional, you know, engagement is very real. So most definitely, it's like you said, Erika, it's just a matter of having the opportunity, having the voice, number one, being okay with having the voice, right? And then leveraging that voice to put the information out there, to make it known. And that's why I do want to reiterate again, for us specifically, our symposiums, you can go to our site, you can see the dates and the locations for our symposiums. They occur all over the country. because they are positioned based on our corporate partner relationships, and anyone can attend our symposiums. They are not exclusive to our members. They are open to anyone who wants to register and attend. Who wants to register and attend that, and be a part of that environment, and be a part of the opportunity to engage with folks who are in that space. So absolutely, if you want to be a part of it, just let us know. Go to the site, register, because we're about creating a movement that allows, a growth to happen, an expansion to happen, a dialogue to happen, and one that is open to anybody who has an interest.
Now, do you guys have chapters, or you focus mainly in Atlanta? So how does that work?
We don't have chapters. So again, our presence is based on, just people knowing about who we are. We're a national organization, so we have constituents who are all over the country. So, we have some markets where we have a greater representation versus others. But in terms of, like, Atlanta is a huge market for us. DC is a huge market for us, but we're all over the country. And that's why, again, our symposiums are not in one particular area versus another. For example, we have a corporate partner who is, the CIO is the CIO of Atlantis, right? So we'll be hosting possibly, one, and have hosted in the past, one of our symposiums down in Atlantis in the Bahamas. We have,
I want to go to that one.
You see what I'm saying? Why not? Who wouldn't want to be in the Bahamas, right? But we have corporate partners, that are out on the West Coast. So this year we were in the West Coast. HP, one of our corporate partners, hosted us at Palo Alto. We've had Microsoft host us in Redmond, Washington. So we literally happen all over the country, and we welcome anyone who is looking to make a change, looking to engage with other technology leaders. And let me also say this, our focus is not just, when we provide content, it's not just from a technology perspective. We actually provide content in what we call focusing on a full 360, right? So what that means is we recognize that as a technology leader, yes, you need to be aware of technology trends. Yes, you need to be aware of technology futures. But as a leader, as an executive, or as someone who's looking to become an executive, you also need to be aware of community engagement. You also need to be aware of being a good mentor. You also need to be aware of how do you position yourself to sit on a corporate board, because the reality is, particularly as you get to that level, those are the other attributes and those are the other metrics by which you're being scrutinized, right? How effectively do you engage in all of those different areas as well as things like wealth management, as well as things like how do you create balance in your life, right? And so from the standpoint of when we host our conferences, we are bringing that full 360 of information and content, and feeding someone mind, body, and soul, right? Mind, body, and soul. Because at the end of the day, it's all of those things that keep an executive up at night. So I wanted to stress that, because I don't want someone to get there and feel like, yes, 75% of the content is going to be technology related, but 25% or more, particularly like at our fourth quarter symposium, is going to be more about personal and self-enrichment. Because, to the point, Erika, that you made, we're looking to figure out ways to be recognized, to be more impactful, to be acknowledged for who we are as people, right? So we're looking to feed all of that, because we know that, again, as you're aspiring to be at that executive level, those are the other things that you're going to be judged upon. How effectively are you bringing forth
Right.
that full well-roundedness as an executive leader, right? So we bring all that to bear at the symposiums that we host. And again, our symposiums are open to anyone.
Well, you guys have heard that, and I'll certainly make sure I put the link
Yes,
to
it's my family. That's the easiest way to remember who we are, because you will drive yourself crazy trying to remember ITSMF. I've been working on staff with ITSMF for 4 years now. It practically took me a year to say that without laughing, without getting it wrong, without messing up the acronym. I mean, it's a tongue twister, and it's comedic to watch other people try and remember the name. It's my family. Just go with that. But yeah, but here, and let me tell you the other reason behind that, right? Besides because it's an easier way to remember the acronym. Again, a niche within a niche is how I described us, right? One of our long withstanding members recognized that this was his family. Literally, it was his family, his home away from home, right? And so whenever he was talking to his executive assistant, it was easy enough to just say, I'm going to go be with my family, right? It's my family. People greet each other with a hug. There's no handshakes that happen. It's a hug, and it's like church. You show up 3 times, then we calling you family at that point, whether you want to be embraced as that or not. And again, it's an acknowledgement that, you know, there's a mutual recognition of been there, done that, understand what you're going through, and we just want to give you nothing but love. So it's my family.
We need that. We need that. You know, for those of us who have been in the struggle, you know, every day I come across, you know, a young lady, especially for people here in Texas in the oil and gas, you know, who just have horror stories, you know, their experiences, and to hear that they're, at least some of us who are, you know, empowered, encouraged, uplifted, supported, you know, loved, that's wonderful. I hope to cross over to that group. I shouldn't say that because I get all of that from BWISE. So I shouldn't say that. I get all of that, and hopefully I give it back as well. So that's very encouraging. I mean, I can make you cry with the stories that I've heard from some of the ladies from anywhere. One lady with a chemical engineering degree moved up to Connecticut, and Tam knows this story. They had her making coffee. Like that was part of her job responsibility, to make the coffee. You know, being called out their name, had your direct reports tell you, I don't have to listen to you. So it's so encouraging to know that there is hope out there. There is, you know, there's a way for you to make the most out of your career. And just because you chose an industry that doesn't support or encourage women or minorities, that you don't have to stay. I think that's part of the challenge. A lot of us are like, well, where are we supposed to go? We don't know what else to do. So that gives me hope that, you know, I could get you, I can transition all my members. We'll all be in tech. BWISE will roll itself. We won't have, or we former Black women who used to work in science and engineering. We'll roll all over. So I'm excited. I'm excited about, you know, all that you all are doing, and certainly your partnerships. I'm excited about the I can't even talk anymore, but I'm excited about possibly working with NSBE. They've also asked if we would collaborate with SWE. I have my thoughts on that. But I'm excited about all the opportunities because we need it. I reached out to a company last week, and, you know, he was like, you know what, you called at a really good time. You know, and he's white. And he said, you know, you called at a really good time, you know, because, you know, there's so much to do here in regards to diversity, and I'm new. So, you know, anybody who's, you know, able to help me and support me accomplish my goals, I'm in. And then when you just look at what's going on in the world, you know, corporations aren't certainly responsible for, you know, this hate and all these crimes, but you've got employees who come to work every day. And so, you know, you're not responsible for it, but you can't turn your back and turn a blind eye and say, well, it didn't happen on our facility, so it really doesn't matter, right? So you can be a leader and say, you know what, I see what's going on in the world, and we can do our little bitty, I won't even say little bitty. You can do something to make the world better by being a progressive company. So I'm hopeful that that company is interested in moving forward and doing some great things with BWISE. And certainly for organizations like you as well. So I'm so excited. This hour goes by so fast. I tell everybody who comes on, they're like, an hour? I say, you won't, trust me. You'll be like, it's an hour already. So I want to make sure that we touch on a little bit about Grace Hopper. For those of you who don't know, Grace Hopper is kind of a national organization for women in computing. And I'm not quite sure. I was hoping Hala could talk to us about Anita Borg. I'm not sure exactly how those two tie together. I don't know if you know, Erika, but their national conference is going to be in Houston in October. So if you know, could you give us some insight on Grace Hopper?
My understanding is that that's the specific conference, national conference for women in technology that the Anita Borg Institute that they host, right? And like you said, the next one that's coming up in October is in Houston. We have yet to attend, so I don't want to mislead in terms of our representation of their organization. But as we're growing and evolving and identifying opportunities to expand in places where we want to be and where we want to support, it's clearly something that is representative of an audience and a population that's important to us. So in that vein, right, you mentioned like the Women of Color in STEM will be at that conference, which is also taking place in October. But, the Anita Borg Institute, they're doing phenomenal things, and specifically through that conference and the lineage of who that conference represents, the person that conference represents, right, is indicative and resembles what we're talking about here in terms of getting women into the pipeline, committed to the pipeline, focused on technology, staying committed to that particular career path, particularly when they're still underrepresented in that space, highly underrepresented in that space. And to your point, versus engineering, right? And plus the other challenges is that technology is a space where originally, right, it was more people were, when you think of people kind of operating in a bubble and operating in a very closed, almost like a cave environment, so very secluded and separated, right? But so it's great to have organizations like the Anita Borg Institute and specifically the Grace Hopper, conference for women in technology, because it's highly supportive of creating, again, that safe environment where you can come, you can gather, you can network. It's all very organic in terms of meeting other people who have commonalities and synergies in terms of your career path, your lineage, but also your struggles and your challenges. And just so you're hearing from subject matter experts and leaders, but you're also creating, right, relationships with people, other women, right, who are in the same space as you. So we're just excited to know that that organizations like that exist, and to know the great things that they're doing in their particular space and in the conference that they're hosting.
Absolutely. So we'll have Hala back on to talk about, the upcoming event in October. Hopefully they call it BWIC. Yeah, BWIC. So hopefully BWIC and BWISE can tag team and Wonder Twin powers activate at Grace Hopper and make some wonderful things happen this year. I don't know why they happen to have it back to back in Houston, but good for
Take advantage of it. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Now take advantage. That's great exposure for BWISE. So I love it. So before we wrap up, because we have gone over, but I love it. I'm sure all of us, I don't see no more hand claps. I need to see some hand claps over there. Dr. Ford, I see you.
Calling people out. There you go. Wow. No question. No question.
Thank you, Tam. I want to make sure we ask questions, even if it's a matter of, hey, how can I get in contact with you? So before we wrap up, does anybody have any questions for Erika? I'll make sure that I post, all the information, and then we've got to have Erika on again. She's a wonderful guest. And, you know, as a host, it looks, and when I watch TV, I'm like, man, that looks easy. It's not. You really have to have an engaging co-host or person that you're talking to. And then for Erika to come in at the last minute, thank goodness, because I would have been on here, I don't know, turning flips or something by myself. So thank you so much for joining. But does anybody have any questions before, you know, we wrap it up? Then, like I said, I'll make sure that all of Erika and It's My Family's information is available to you all. And certainly, you know, if you ever want to get in contact with her or learn some more about what she does, it's either on the website or, you know, most of the people have my telephone number and email, so you can always contact me then. And then hopefully I'll be in Atlanta at this third quarter event. Hopefully I can come. We got to talk about that. So I'm looking forward to it. Next month. I think it's next month, right? The 10th through the 13th?
The 11th through the 13th.
11th through the 13th. Oh, 11th? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So before we depart, does anyone who's on, I see we've got 4 people who are on and then 12 who are listening. Anyone, before we wrap up here, have any questions or comments or feedback? I mean, if you guys think this was a worthwhile show, we definitely want to know that, because this is the type of, you know, collaboration that we want to have, the type of guest host that we want to have come on and share her knowledge. And then I always post these on YouTube. So long after, you know, the show is over, you know, this lives on and on and on. People can go back and look at the replay. I do post it on YouTube and on my website. And then I put a little link on LinkedIn, because I want to drive people to the website. So I'll put a little 30-second clip or less on LinkedIn that says, if you want to know more, go to the website. And I'll make sure that I put a link to your organization too when I post that tonight or in the morning. So before we wrap up, Dr. Ford, Tam, anyone else have any questions for Erika? Okay. Tam says she put my name, not your name. So I am Erika, Erika, and she is Erika, Errika. So Tam, did you mean Erika with 1 R or 2 R's that you need to talk to? Which one did you need to talk to? Because I know we talk every day. I'm assuming it's with the 2 R's. Maybe we'll call 1 and 2. Did you mean 1 or 2?
That's so funny.
Okay, she must not be on yet, but anyway, she probably means you, Erika. So I'll make sure that she gets your information, because I'm sure she wants to know all about your girlfriend who's in mechanical engineering that made that switch. Oh, now Dr. Ford wants to call in. Okay, Dr. Ford, we'll give you 2 minutes. Come on in.
I'm in the process of packing.
Dr. Ford is coming in. Dr. Ford is a former chemistry professor at Texas Southern University. Okay, we can't see you, Dr. Ford.
Oh, my camera is.
You gotta hang up your phone. Uh-oh.
I get back here?
All right.
Did I get back here?
You there, Dr. Ford? We can't see you. Kind of.
I've got a lot of adjustments to do. I'm playing with my computer. Lots of problems here. So that's the best I can do for the moment. I just wanted to say that I enjoyed listening. Even though I was not able to participate, I'm behind on my packing.
You're behind on your
packing.
what?
I'm trying to get out of town tomorrow. Go to Chicago in the morning.
Okay. All right. So with that, thank you, Dr. Ford. Dr. Ford is a great supporter of BWISE, and I'm sure he probably has questions for you, Erika. So we'll let everybody enjoy the rest of their evening. Those of you, who want a further discussion, you know how to reach me. And thank you again for all the listeners and all the viewers who've been on tonight. Thank you, Erika. Thank you so much, Erika. This is, I'm so glad when we connected, because Erika supports, anything I post, Erika reposts it. She don't mess around. So thank you for promoting BWISE as you do, and all your support and what we're trying to do. And I'm just excited about the opportunity to work with you guys at It's My Family. I'm going to be a member of the family. I'm excited. So excited. So thank you everyone for attending tonight. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next week. Next week, we're going to be talking about the challenge of getting your PhD in some of the STEM fields. So we've got a young lady who just was named, I think, a university president, and I can't think of the school, forgive me, named Sabrina Collins, and organization that, and they may be out of Atlanta too, that supports those who are working towards obtaining their PhD and going into academia. I haven't done a whole lot with that portion of our group, but they need love too. I've heard from, quite a few people that, it's just as isolating in academia as it is in corporate America. So we want to make sure that everybody who needs support gets it. So that'll be next week. So if you guys can come back, that would be great. And if not, you can always watch the replay. Replay is on Blab, and also it'll be posted on the www.bwiseusa.org website as well. So with that, I will say good night. Right at 8:30 to everybody. Again, Erika, thank you so much. Tam, I'll talk to you later. Dr. Ford, safe travels, and everybody else, good night.
Thank you so much, Erika. Appreciate it.
We'll circle back. We'll debrief later, Erika.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.